Welcome to Real Estate for Real Life podcast. I'm Ryan Wilson.
And I'm Courtney Gauchman.
The topic for today's episode is, does work-life balance exist for entrepreneurs?
We're here today with Mian LaVallee, senior partner and top producer at Wilson Group. And we're excited to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me on the
Thanks for coming.
couch. It's a beautiful setup here.
Beautiful blue clay, I'm told.
That's what it is. You got it right.
Yeah, so cozy up and
Yeah.
get ready to tell us all your fancy little secrets.
All my inner thoughts. Huh?
Yeah, yes. We're going to dive deep.
Okay.
So speaking of that, you look like on paper you have it all, right? Which we know in real life you do. So we'd love to hear, though, at your level of production, what does that actually look like for you? How do you have a work-life balance?
Well, I don't know what paper you're reading because I haven't seen that one yet, but it's an amazing compliment. I think that if you mean, do I wake up at 4:30 and I do meditation and I take a cold bath after I've worked out for 5? No, I don't have it all. I'm not completely centered. I don't never lose it. I don't have everything organized, but I have created and I am intentional about how I spend my time. And I think that is the only way that you could potentially achieve a work-life balance. And so in that regard, I think that's how we do it. We have to make really smart, really intentional, really thoughtful decisions so that everybody gets a little bit of us without anybody feeling like they don't get any of us.
That's impressive. And hearing you say intentional, that means a lot. I think that's really important in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
How is that balance that you have and you've been able to kind of maintain over the years, work-life balance, how has that changed throughout your career?
So obviously it starts at home. In the beginning, I have 3 kids, as you guys know, and in the beginning, I have always worked in real estate essentially for my entire career, going on year 20 for this year, which I can't believe because I'm only 19. So like the math isn't
Yeah.
It is
mathing.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right out
you
of the womb.
you
Yeah.
tell me.
Carry the two.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. I wasn't ever very good at math. Anyways, but when I had my daughter, I was consistently rushing to the daycare to get her by 6. There was never a time I would have somebody walk into my sales office saying, "Can I see lot 7?" I'd want to get the deal done. I'd want to show the property, but I'd also have responsibilities to get her. And as somebody who was in daycare myself, I never wanted to be the last person picked up. And so there was just so much angst surrounding that. So we made a decision early on that we needed in-home care so that we had more flexibility to be able to do our job. And that was just the nature of the business. My kids have early on had either an in-home nanny or an au pair. I think we've had 12, and she's just the last one is stuck with us, and she's mine forever. And without them, I could never do what I do. So that's number one. You've got to figure out, your home before you go out and try to encourage people to buy theirs, I think. And then at work, obviously, every year is a bit different, but it ramps up. And then eventually, around 8 years ago, I realized I really needed to start trying to leverage so I could be more. So you need to think about how you can achieve more, but you have to also be realistic, and that isn't alone. So I got an assistant, and it really changed my life because I was able to start really leaning on the processes and be able to delegate so I could elevate. So between the at-home help and the at-work help, it really allowed me to be choosy and intentional about where I put my time, and that really exploded in my business.
Amazing.
That's awesome. That's really, really impressive. So what do you do? What sort of systems do you put into place at home to make sure, like you said, something along the lines of, if you don't have it together at home, you can't go sell someone a house, So tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, obviously the systems change because the kids change, right? And so when they were little, obviously we had a routine in terms of bedtime, dinner time. We knew that once they got used to a routine, it allowed us to free up to even look at each other in the face and say something more about life instead of, did they poop today or not, or whatever you talk about when they're babies.
The important stuff.
The important stuff, right. And so another system that we have at home is we have a meeting every Sunday. We've had it for over 10 years where we sit down and all adults in the house and we say, what do we've got going on this week? This allows everyone to get centered and thoughtful about where their time needs to be. So if Sophie has a soccer game or if Luca has a soccer game, but Sophie has a cheerleading game or cheerleading competition and Stella has a robotics competition, like where are we going and how are we going to be there? So someone is supporting them in one way, shape, or form. And the reality is not everybody gets to go to everything. And we all had to get really okay with that. And my kids got really okay with that. And I think that's a very big part of producing resilience in kids, not expecting that their parents live for them, but actually have their own life and their own agenda, but that they're always supported by them. So early on, of course, they're excited to see me on the sidelines, but that isn't always happening. The goal is to be there most of the time, not all the time. But in terms of setting up at home, I do a lot of meal prep. I do a lot of organization on Sundays and over the weekend. I do a lot of thoughtful plans like, okay, on Wednesday, we're going to have our solo dates. On Friday, we're going to do pizza, me and you. So I always fill my calendar with them first. They're the priority. And then I fill work around it.
Okay. So what I'm hearing you say though, and I love this because obviously I know you from a work aspect as well too, is you're setting expectations at home, right? So each child
Yeah.
knows on a Sunday night what they can expect from mom, what they can expect from dad, and what they can expect from your au pair. Do you do the same type of thing with your assistant and with your clients? And then from there, it's also, are you kind of time blocking around the family activities? So if you signed up on Sunday night for some of those activities that you're going to attend, are you now working around that when you're booking client meetings and different showings and appointments?
Yes, I try to work the same way at home as I work in the office or in the field and vice versa, right? So, as I said, everything important, and usually that starts with the family, goes on the calendar first. And then in work, my assistant now and I have a standing meeting every Monday just to recap. Okay, who went to see property last or this past weekend? What offers are due? Obviously, we've chatted all weekend long. We've seen each other if we're showing property together or separate, but we want to recap and really kind of have our download meeting where we make sure we know what to do and what the best use of our time is going forward immediately. And we talk multiple times a day. And then at the end of the day, she sends me a recap of everything we have done and what we still need to do. So we have a running to-do list at all times that we both have access to make sure that we stay on track. And a lot of it is about clients, who needs to go see what, when are they going to be in town if they're relocating, when do they need to be out of their condo by lease-wise, so we make sure that they're at the top of our list. So we're very intentional, we're very involved in their life so we can make sure that their needs are achieved and put front and foremost first. But yes, if somebody wants to see property on and they're open Saturday or Sunday, they're going to see property, but not at 4 o'clock when Luca's soccer game is.
Right. So you mentioned staying on track, right? Like this communication that you have, this whole system that you have with your assistant, with your family, you are staying accountable, it sounds like weekly at least. What happens when you get off track? What do you use for a system in order to kind of reset and reconfigure things?
Well, obviously, I get off track. This is life, right? So you have to build in some kind of spillover or spillage, right? So I have had to come to terms with, I make a to-do list every morning. That's just what I do in addition to already the to-do lists we have that are on the fridge, on the calendar, on my computer, with my assistant, on our board. I have two boards, one in my office here, one in my office at home. I have constant reminders of what I got to do and who I have to touch and who I need to call and who I need to be in front of at all times. And that's just for me. But when I don't achieve everything on my to-do list, I've really had to learn how to let it go because it started to eat away at me and make me feel like I wasn't accomplishing anything, which is truly self-sabotage. It's not possible for everybody to be everything to any one person, right? That's not how it works. So I had to let it go, shut it down. That's about balance and boundaries. You know, right now my do not disturb on my phone turns on at 10 p.m. It doesn't come back on until 7 a.m. And I tell my clients that from the beginning. You can absolutely text me at any time. You can absolutely email me at any time. It's okay though if you know that I won't answer you back until the morning. I want to get up, make my kids breakfast. I want to drop them off at school sometimes. I want to go up and do an early Pilates class. And that time is needed for me in order to be the best person for you.
That's great. At what point in your career did you set those boundaries? Because that's impressive to be able to make sure you're balancing things properly while taking care of the family, taking care of your clients. How did that evolve over the career?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the beginning, I've suffered from I have to be everything to everybody. I have to be the most available. I have to be the fastest. I have to be working nonstop. That means that I'm going to be successful. So I did, and I quickly got burnt out, and I was in my 20s, which makes no sense, you know. So certainly I had children, what some would call early. I had my first daughter at 27. I call myself a teen mom. And at 27, I was just running ragged and I didn't feel like I should be. So right after I had my second daughter, 2 years later, I said, okay, I need to really time block when I want to work because there's so little and I don't want to miss anything at home. So obviously I started doing a semblance of when I was going to put my phone down, when I was going to hide it, when I wasn't going to look at my computer. And then also I started booking things with them, whether it was mommy and me classes or gymnastics, where I knew I couldn't be on my phone and I had to be intentional and be with them. So you got to know yourself and you got to know if you're innately a workaholic. You got to know if your personality and your work ethic, if you don't shut it down, you won't. And I tell my family, I'm going to go upstairs and work a little bit. Can somebody come up and let me know it's time to go? And Jeff my husband constantly does. He goes, "It's time for you to close it. We're going to watch Real Housewives. It's time for you to close it. We're going to watch this documentary." And I have to have help in shutting it down. So you have to know yourself, and you have to, outsource help so that you can actually be the best person.
Right. You've also done an incredible job over the years of incorporating the things you love, the hobbies you have, the things that you are doing anyways with your children, with your family, into your business. Can you explain a little bit about how in sales, right? If your client can be anyone, how you've done a phenomenal job of attracting clients that are similar to the things you want to be doing and the things you enjoy doing.
Yeah, I kind of had to do that because I was a little bit upset that my kids were so good at everything they did. And so we were constantly at something that they were a part of. So, we did dance for the girls for like 9 years. I don't think that they could do the pas de bourrée right now. So I don't know what kind of lessons they really took from that. But if I was at the dance studio for 3 hours, I got to know the moms. I was sitting there talking with them about a million other things. Those people are people who easily gravitated toward me because nobody doesn't talk about real estate. Even if you're talking about the weather, even if you're talking about what to make for dinner, even if you're talking about where to go on vacation, somehow, some way, real estate comes up. And I started deciding if my kids were going to be involved in any kind of a sport, activity, club, and I had to be there in order to support them, why not make money while I'm doing it? It doesn't make sense for me to try to separate it. So I made my life both work and life congruency. So if I go out, I accidentally always talk to the waiter about where they live, why are they renting, how much do they pay. It's just something that I do. I'm easy to talk to, and I really like to learn about what people have going on. And I think that people feel a lot less salesy when they realize it's just another person, and that's just one part of my life, not the entire part of my life.
Right. And then from there, I feel like as your kids have gotten a bit older and they're a little bit more independent, you've now kind of started to do things where it's really popular to say you're not gatekeeping, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you've done Botox and Bubbly, and you've actually started to open up different events and said, these are things I'm into. These are things, we've done Mian's gift giving guides, and you've kind of shown what your favorite things are. You did a white elephant party where it was, everyone was bringing their favorite trending item as a gift, right? So tell us a little bit more about how you've kind of now started to shift gears, right? Because your kids are a little bit more on the independent side. You are still a mom of 3. You have massive amounts of responsibility, bigger kids, bigger problems. But you're doing a phenomenal job of still making your business something that you enjoy, because it is a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week business. So tell us like some of those things and ways you've made that work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's lots of different ways where you can be successful in real estate. Some people cold call, some people knock on doors, some people, put their face on, buggies at Stop and Shop, and none of those are bad. And all of those are different for different people's personalities. My personality is one of connection and gathering. And I also am getting older and want to make sure that I look good, feel good, inside out. So I'm on a million supplements. I'm on a million different websites. I always share that. I get a ton of feedback about, all right, what are you taking? Oh, did you try this Omega? So I love to not gatekeep on what I'm doing personally. And you would be shocked about how much professional business that has turned out to give me, because we're all in the same boat. I think that's one of the biggest things. People want to do business with people they like and respect, and they see themselves in. And so once you pull down the mask of you're this amazing real estate person who you can't be touched and you really can't, no, you're just a regular person who just happens to sell real estate, and you do it really well. But a lot of it is about what I do anyway. So if I'm going to take a million supplements, I'm asking, all right, well, what is everyone else taking? If I'm going to go to Botox because I need to, because I smile too much, so I have frown lines or, crow's feet, what are these called? 11s. Then I want to know where you're going. And then everyone has an opinion. And so we started having these Botox and Bubbly parties, which is amazing and been such a hit. We're going to be having another one very soon also, where we made it easier for people who I already know want to get Botox, and maybe they haven't yet or they aren't as consistent. And we bring it to my home. I want to invite them into my home. I want it to be a super casual experience. We usually get a bartender and we educate them. We have amazing vendors, amazing facialists and estheticians, nurses who know what they're talking about, highly vetted, and they come to our home and they do it at my home. And so it's just one other way to do what I love to do and what I need to do, and bring people who I care and know, and anybody that they care and know, to the same table.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I love all the events you do. It's impressive.
Are you
It really
jealous
is.
because you don't get invited?
I mean, I wouldn't
sometimes?
mind going to Botox and Bubbly.
It's mainly for women, so it's not about you.
Sounds lovely. Maybe even
You
a
could get
Pilates
some
class.
You
Botox.
also don't
Yeah.
need it, Ryan. You're just You're just
I do agree. It's
naturally
pretty.
young.
It is.
Aging gracefully.
It
That's
is.
right.
It is a
Benjamin Button.
perfect face. Um, so one thing I'm curious about, Mian, you hustle to no end. There's no doubt about that. Courtney mentioned, it's a 24/7 job. It really is. And like, just from a general standpoint, for you personally, for just the culture, for, workers these days, do you think that like hustle culture, which is really, really something people, want to do, you want to be considered a hustler, right? That's, I feel like, a big compliment. Do you think that kind of culture has done any harm to us now? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Does that not allow for balance? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think it's a great question because I feel like to answer your question vaguely, yes and no. So I think the hustle culture is really helped. Unfortunately or fortunately, I think maybe our generation, I won't loop Courtney in because she is infinitely younger than me, so she wasn't in my generation, but potentially our generation was the last generation that hustle was expected and we grew up with, right? So we learned that you've got to sacrifice a lot in the beginning to get a lot in the end, right? And so we were all very okay with that. And I really stand by that. I'd rather sacrifice in the beginning to be super successful in the end and not have to sacrifice as much. So in that way, I do think it really pumped people up. It made them understand, yeah, I got to really hustle. I got to really work. However, I also think that it went all the way right? Which is like, I'm burning out completely. I don't know when to stop. I don't have any boundaries. And that's not the way to do it. So I think hustle culture is only as good as if the boundaries and the systems you have to keep it in check. And again, going back to the word intentional, if you can be intentional with your hustle, you won't be overdoing it with your hustle. You don't have to be on 24/7. You just have to be amazing when you're on.
Mhm.
And that's it. You have to create time to do nothing, which is always something I'm struggling with, but it is important in order to be super successful.
I love that answer. That's great. And like, people are always going to sacrifice things for their personal life, for their work, and that's just the real world. I believe you really do need to sacrifice certain things in order to accomplish other things.
Well,
You-
it's called work, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, as much as we have a fun job, and if you follow us on social media, you're going to see we're constantly having a great time. We host really fun events. We have a lot of ways that you can make work fun. However, at the end of the day, it still is work, right? So there is a sacrifice involved in that. But the interesting piece about the hustle culture is when you say your generation, technology wasn't a thing though.
That's right.
So now we have this endless technology that you can be contacted at all hours of the night. And some people,
And
they're
I
not
do.
expecting, yeah, but they're not expecting a response necessarily, right? Like it's like a lot of us have obscure hours depending on our kids and the sleep schedules and all the different things. But I do think that what you're saying is really smart because burnout is a real thing. This is an industry that we have these major peaks and these ebbs and flows, right? Depending on seasonality. And you have to protect yourself. But that's where I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the systems that you put in place during those crazy peaks and then also during the valleys, right? Because sales, no matter what you're selling, whether it's real estate or technology or orthopedic sales, like my husband, right? Like it's like you're going to have these really big highs and these really low lows. And I'd love to hear what are the systems you put in place to kind of keep yourself a little more level during those really tough times.
I think it's definitely setting expectations at home, starting again back at home, which is, I've got a lot going on right now. I've got a ton of clients who need to move immediately. I have a ton of relos. I have a ton of listings who are going to go live. So I'm not going to be as around as possible, just letting you guys know. I don't want anybody at home to feel blindsided by my absence or ever feel like I've chosen work over them. And by now they all know. They're all very supportive and they get it. But I think the systems surrounding obviously keeping with the Sunday nights and making sure the schedule is set and also making sure I get very intentional with my clients about asking them what their timeline is so that I can appropriately push them or be stagnant with them depending on them. I always say to them, whatever your cadence is, we'll match it. You know what I mean? If you're not ready to go yet, we won't. But if you tell me you have to be out of your house in 60 days, I'm going to be dragging you out every day, every weekend after work, because that's how I know we will achieve your goals. So it's really a collaborative effort with the other person in the deal, which is my client, and making sure that they understand from the beginning that we have a goal. It's a similar goal. It's the same goal. You're the one who brought it to me, and my job is to make sure we achieve it.
Yeah, right. That's really impressive. The thing that I love about you as a real estate person is, you can really understand where your client is coming from because oftentimes you're working with people that are also in similar situations to you. They
Yeah.
might be buying their second home, they might be upgrading, selling their first, or whatever the case may be. How, with you having that experience, how are you able to, improve what you do as as a real estate person, you
Yeah.
know,
I
with
think
with that knowledge?
I think it's a good question because I always say, gosh, I can't, this year I'm going to be 44. I've decided to start saying it out loud. It's just going to happen. And that means I've lived a little bit of a life, right? And I'm divorced, happily divorced, love my ex-husband. My kids are well adjusted. And so when I meet people who are divorcing or divorced, I have a different lens that I talk to them with. They feel immediately comfortable. I can speak to them about what things they may not know that are coming. So if their ex is going to be in a neighboring town, do one of you need to have a really top school district so that you can make sure the kids go to one good school and one doesn't? Like where we have a different way of communicating because we have a shared experience, right? I have kids that go to 3 different schools. 2 are private. They're not going to go to, one's going to college and one's going to go to private again. That means that I know about schools in almost every single town in greater Boston and can speak to them about what their preference is, as well as where their kids are. My kids are not the same. Most people's kids are not the same. So not only, sometimes one school doesn't fit all 3 children. So I can speak to them based off of my experience, and I think that that puts them at ease. I can also see things that they can't see. So when someone says to me, oh, we're pregnant, we're due in a couple months, and I think we're going to want to move right after the baby's born, I have more questions because I think that they don't know that they're not going to want to move after the baby's born. They're not going to know what day it is. And so if it's possible and there's no issues, I would love for them to get in before they are due so that they are nesting and they are stationary and they feel comfortable, because when the baby's born, you don't know what's happening. And that's the worst time for you to try to pick up and move because you're not really going to be very helpful either.
So you have a wealth of life experience that you're able to offer your clients, which
Yes.
is incredible. I feel like that kind of intertwines with all of these years of experience, of life experience, real estate experience. What is some advice that you would give to your younger self?
I would say to my younger self, stop drinking Malibu and root beer first. It's gross and it's going to hurt your stomach later. And
Malibu
then,
and root beer?
yeah, that was my drink.
Mian, you've
I
really evolved.
know.
French 75s sound a
She's
lot
so grown
better.
up now. I
Some
know.
She's
Tito's and a
classy.
martini.
Tito's in a martini glass.
She's classy.
I would tell my younger self that you need to trade being available all the time for being great at your job when you are on. So there was just a constant, no problem, I can do that. Sure, I'll meet you there. When do you want to go see it? There was no, I was following instead of leading in an attempt to demonstrate that I was valuable. And so I think I first would say, you're really great as you are. You are allowed to put some boundaries and guardrails up. Your real clients, the best clients, are going to respect those boundaries and guardrails, and you will still be successful while not feeling like you don't have a life and you don't have any say so over the hours in your day. So just a reaffirmation that wherever you are in your life, you're fine just there, and that whatever is supposed to happen the next time, as long as you keep your head down and you hustle, you do your work, you're intentional about your work, you actually are thoughtful and you have processes to support what you're supposed to be doing, you will absolutely get to the next step.
Like, so obviously you're touching on, your situation, and you've had many life experiences. So someone going through that burnout right now,
Yeah.
okay, in any industry, obviously real estate is what and love. Where would someone start there to kind of fix that burnout?
I mean, I think it depends on exactly what kind of burnout, but I always say the best next day starts the night before. And I don't know if I always say it or if I read it in a book or heard it on a podcast.
I think it was a direct quote from you. You just made that
so
up.
please write it down.
It's
Mhm.
Trademark it. But yeah, so it's probably sleep. So I know I am a terrible sleeper. My Aura Ring reaffirms it. I probably get on average 5 hours of sleep, and that's because I do a lot of work in the evening. So when I need to stop the cycle of burnout, I immediately shut down my nighttime activities. So getting more sleep, step 1. Preparing for your day the night before is step 2. Really being intentional about creating the breaks you need throughout the day and really saying, I know I have 12 things to do today. I'm going to accomplish 4, and then I'm going to stop. And really protecting your time would be step 3. And then letting other people know that you are not feeling your best, you're not feeling 100% is really the most important one, because you do need support during that time. You got to give yourself a break. Your body's telling you it's time to chill. And that doesn't mean it means you're done. It just means you need to take a break right now.
I love that. So, from all of this that you've said, the major takeaways that I have are you are pre-planning everything. So you're pre-planning your week first, then you're pre-planning the night before in order to be the most efficient and the most effective with your time. You've said a lot about being intentional, and intentional is incredibly important. You're also being highly efficient. From there, I'm also hearing a lot about communication, whether it's communicating with your family or communicating with your assistant, right? Because if you are someone who's an employer, has employees with you, you need to be communicating regularly with your employee in order to make sure that you guys are actually maximizing both of your time to be as efficient as possible, to be able to actually get more done
Right.
than you would if you were a solo entrepreneur. Then from there, I'm also hearing communication with clients, which is setting expectations, which actually alleviates more conversations and harder conversations on the back end, and communicating with your family again, like so communicating with your kids, letting them know what to expect. So I feel like you had so many amazing tips and tricks and things that people can take with them. And if you don't have that planning mentality, the to-do list, the daily to-do list, right? And if you didn't get it done, you transfer that to the next day. And those are things that you just have to live by. If you don't have a to-do list, it's similar to our episode about business planning. You have no roadmap.
That's
Every
right.
day you wake up, you're rogue, and you are going to waste so much time, especially with the technology we have today. I can find myself, if I don't have a solid to-do list, I'm wasting so many times down that rabbit hole on social media. So I feel like you gave us a lot of really good advice, ways to get back on track, ways to stay accountable with yourself. And as a solo entrepreneur, someone who has 3 children and a big life and a huge business, you are doing a phenomenal job. And if
Yeah.
someone doesn't walk away taking some really big tips with them, they better DM you and ask
Yeah.
you for additional advice.
You know what they say, if you don't plan for the day will plan for you. So I don't
I
like
love that
You are
quote.
a fortune
I don't
cookie
like
right
people.
here.
I don't like people telling me what to do. So I'm going to start telling the day what to do, and I need to, I just tell the day what to do.
Tell that day who's boss.
I
Tell
love
that
Love
day
it.
who's boss.
Yeah.
Then execute.
And then execute.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us, Mian.
Thank you, Mian.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I'm Courtney Gauchman.
And I'm Ryan Wilson.
And this is Real Estate for Real Life. Thank you for joining.
Thanks.